at Appfire, we've made the very specific decision that we don't have a direct sales team. We have people that can certainly help our direct customers be successful who have chosen to transact on the marketplace, but we double down on partners because we've just found that if I spend the same number of hours enabling a partner versus enabling a direct salesperson, that partner helps me achieve scale much faster because they've already got their own book of business. So that 1 hour of enablement, that $1 of enablement for us creates much more efficient scale through our partner network. And when our partners know that, they trust us.
Our sponsor is Partner Insight, your AI co-pilot to grow your partnerships 3x faster. Onboard and collaborate with partners from one shared platform. Seamlessly exchange and track deals, content, and data. Use AI to automate engagements, track progress, create reports, or answer frequent partner questions. Try Partner Insight for free.
Today, we are very fortunate to have Colin Puckett. Great to have you.
Roman, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to get your perspective from leading channel in companies like Appfire, where you are today, and having all this experience that you collected leading growth in Qualtrics and then leading ecosystem in Qualtrics, even before you was in Amazon business, where you helped to grow huge B2B marketplace. It's really interesting to ask you all the questions about marketplace dynamic and what is a best practice in marketplace, because Appfire is the largest provider in Atlassian ecosystem, right? It's kind of building all these apps, builds on top of Atlassian ecosystem. So I really look forward to talking with you about all of this today. But to kick us off, tell us a little bit more about Appfire, and then we'll look back into a couple of your previous experiences.
Appfire, for those of you that haven't heard of us, wouldn't surprise me. We've been growing very fast recently. So Appfire has been around for close to 20 years now. So as a longtime player in the Atlassian ecosystem, and actually our founding team was really a part of the early days of building out the Atlassian marketplace and really the genesis of the entire ecosystem that's been built around the Atlassian platform. Today, we are considered by Atlassian to be a marketplace partner, which means we are an app vendor. And today we have hundreds of apps on the Atlassian marketplace. We're a large provider that we've grown both from in-house product development, and then more recently we've acquired some just world-class applications to round out our portfolio in some important ways that bring more value to our customers, predominantly through solution partners. So that's really sort of the ecosystem. When you talk about the ecosystem at Atlassian, we're really talking about how solution partners deliver value through the Atlassian platform as sort of optimized through the usage of a number of different apps, connectors, add-ons like Appfire provides in order to create very customized solutions to solve particular business problems for customers. So really from the customer perspective, when a customer hears ecosystem, it's this dynamic network of app vendors, solution providers, and of course the Atlassian platform coming together to help solve those complex problems for them. That's really where the value-added multipliers come in for the customers. And again, we operate as one of the largest app vendors within that ecosystem. So been around for a while, but we've certainly accelerated our growth recently, thanks to some amazing investors that are really supporting us. And I'm happy to say, especially to this audience, that we are really a partner-first organization. So we do not have a direct sales team. We operate a great deal of our revenue through our partners. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to run and grow the team today that focuses on how we accelerate growth through our partners and also through a growing customer success organization.
You had experience across different sort of marketplaces now, and now you are in a company which is partner first, right? You might say that Amazon is also pretty heavily kind of focused on partners, and third-party sellers in Amazon is like more than half of their revenue, right, in e-commerce. But just give a little bit of depth of Appfire. So Appfire now is like a sort of unicorn, right? Kind of valued more than $1 billion. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of products in more specifics, like what type of products you're building for Atlassian ecosystem, and what does it look? Do you also have presence in other marketplaces apart from Atlassian?
I'll start with that last part first. Yes, as we grow and as we've continued to acquire companies and develop more technology in-house, one of the things we've recognized is, there's a real trend in our customer base that a lot of teams are now empowered to choose their own tools. Mm-hmm. So you may have, multiple different project management, program management tools within a single customer. You may have different CRMs operating within a large organization. So more and more, we're seeing that these connectors and integrations between some of these systems are really critical for us. So we now have in-house, for example, Jira to Salesforce connectors. We have connectors that will go between Jira and Slack, or Jira and Microsoft Teams, right? So these are, other ways for us to certainly gain a bit of a footprint mm-hmm. within some of these other ecosystems. But also it's a way for us to better care for our customers who are saying, we choose our own tools, both within and outside of Atlassian, and we want to make sure that we're driving as much efficiency as possible by connecting all those systems together and giving our teams the ability to communicate, especially now that we're seeing so many of these teams trying to be as productive as possible in even more distributed environments, remote working environments, global remote working environments. These connectors and these abilities to communicate across different platforms is really critical for those teams who want to continue to move fast and choose their own tools. And we're trying to be at the center of that and really empower that choice at the customer level through world-class technology.
Before we dive deeper into best practice in terms of kind of growing and building on top of other marketplaces, let's do a little bit of detour into your previous experience. Tell us a little bit more about your experience in Qualtrics, in growing ecosystem, and also in Amazon, sort of high level.
I'll start with my entrance into tech, which was joining pre-launch, joining the Amazon business team in 2015, and I came from a more traditional B2B background, but I joined as marketing hire number one before the launch of Amazon Business. I was marketing hire number one on the marketplace side, so my job was to work with B2B suppliers to join this marketplace, and in this case, it is a physical goods marketplace, right? So this is not just a SaaS marketplace. This was, a real physical goods marketplace that we were building to cater to the business buyer, the business customer. So what's interesting there is, yes, while it was a physical good marketplace and not a SaaS marketplace, a lot of those same dynamics apply. I mean, the idea of a marketplace has been around literally for thousands of years, right? This is not a new invention. It is more so in the technology space, but this idea of many different suppliers coming together in a single place where the competition creates better value for the customer, the number of suppliers, the amount of choice that they get, the competition between suppliers to get that customer's attention and to prove their value proposition to those customers to gain their business. This has been around for a long time. And really, one of the things I learned at Amazon during this experience was certainly the power of the marketplace experience, but more so the power of the marketplace experience in that it empowers customers. Customers have more choice. Customers tend to get better prices through a marketplace experience because of that competitive dynamic. And as a part of that competitive dynamic, the different vendors, the different suppliers, the different sellers within that marketplace are also competing to provide the most convenient experience, the best customer experience. And that's really where the customer wins in this marketplace model, which is where I think it's really resonating even today. So, tremendous opportunity for me to really be at the heart of Amazon taking this consumer marketplace, obviously, that was mature at that point, and building out a customized version, if you will, for the business buyer, for the procurement professional, and learning all of the different ways that marketplace model needed to adjust, the way that more traditional sort of distribution-based sellers needed to think differently about e-commerce. Marketplaces have brought a new customer experience in the form of price transparency. Right? When you're shopping on marketplaces now, you know what things cost. That's a big part of that marketplace experience that was very contrary to the traditional business procurement experience of the past, when you got sort of your secret 3 bids and a buy from a number of different suppliers. So this was a big sort of revelation in many places, at least on the physical goods side. of the B2B space. But as we know today, marketplaces have become much more ubiquitous on the software side of things. And so it was a great opportunity to grow what was just a phenomenal business. We did $1 billion in our first 12 months. It was just a phenomenal growth path. And then after about 5 years there, I joined Qualtrics. And what Qualtrics really taught me was the focus on the customer experience. And when I say customer experience, Qualtrics is obviously an experience management leader. And what I really loved about Qualtrics is it was another company like Amazon that was very data-driven. We had tremendous access to customer data. But whereas Amazon tended to think about the customer experience in terms of, repeated transactions, Qualtrics was really looking at the fact that behind all the different ways that any customer engages with a brand, every experience they have, every touch point they have with that brand creates a data point that represents a true human experience. So it was a way to use this really powerful data and technology to look at not just what a customer was spending or, how many touch points a customer had with a piece of content, but how it made them react, how it made them feel, how it grew affinity for a brand, a product, or just, an experience or a process. And so I really like that idea of balancing this high volume transactional data experience that I had at Amazon with this idea that behind every one of those data points is a true human experience that brands and companies have an opportunity to influence. And certainly that combination of that operational rigor that you get from data, but also that recognition that behind all of these transactions are true human experiences, I think those have been really, meaningful learnings for me to bring to my current role today, where I'm looking at, again, that quantitative and qualitative balance of trying to grow a business, but also doing so through the lens of building long-term partnerships and earning trust through those, true human relationships.
We will dig deeper into partnerships in a sec, but before we do that, let's talk about how do you think the dynamic in B2B SaaS marketplaces is similar to what you've seen in Amazon sort of early days, right? What struck me in one of your conversations, you said that you need to think like how buyers want to buy, right? Tell me a little bit more about how do you think is sort of similar and how has this marketplace dynamic? It's sort of the same and how it may play out sort of in the next years.
It's a really good question, and it's something that my team or anybody that works with me for any length of time will hear me say a lot. I'll use this challenge question quite a bit, which is, are you thinking more about how you want to sell, or are you thinking more about how the customer wants to buy? And this is something that, and this is a question that I was encouraged to ask a lot in the early days of Amazon business. For example, these traditional B2B product companies who were now looking at selling in this e-commerce space. And I talked about price transparency. That was a big blocker for them because they were not used to their prices being transparent. But, going back to your question, where we're starting to see B2B and B2C really combine here is, for example, when you're at home at night, you're off the clock, you're at home with your family, and you need to buy some sort of a product. You typically grab your mobile device, you go on Amazon, you go on some sort of a consumer marketplace, and you order what you need while you're sitting watching Netflix, right? And it's going to show up the next day or two. Now, when you go into work, you may have to fill out a form. You may have to get 3 different levels of approvals to get a stapler for your desk. You may have to go jump through all of these hoops, where now as an employee working for a large company, and we were experiencing this a lot at Amazon Business, where you've got this really easy thing to do at home, but then you go to work and it's really complicated and you have much more budget, much more spending power. These are billion-dollar organizations that make it really hard to create simple transactions. So the overall point here is that the consumer expectations that have come with the improvements in technology, those expectations are coming with people into the workplace. And those new generations, those more technologically savvy employees now are asking some of these questions of their employers, which is where I think marketplaces become very recognizable Because if you've been shopping on Amazon and you understand what the third-party seller dynamic is, for example, you know that with a single click, you can compare prices between multiple different vendors. That's a marketplace in action, right? And that empowerment of the buyer is an expectation that these consumers took with them into the workplace. So, my challenge question around, is this the way you want to sell, or is this the way customers want to buy? One of the real sort of tenets at Amazon is start with the customer and work backwards. What are the customer's expectations here? And are you designing systems? Are you designing programs? Are you designing processes that will truly resonate with the customer? And that's where I think this marketplace model really does resonate, because people understand it inherently from this growth in how they buy as a consumer. And now it's starting to make more sense as the logical evolution, or really coming full circle, like I said, from thousands of years ago to how people have shopped, for many years. So I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing this new growth in the marketplace model, is really this recognition that it empowers the customer through choice, through better prices, through broad selection in a single location. These are tremendous areas of value for a consumer, but also for a business when businesses start to think differently about how they can buy more efficiently and in many ways more responsibly.
Great insight. But sort of we'll dig deeper into best practices in growing in marketplaces and marketplace partners. But if you were like a software company today, right, and you would think as a marketer and channel chief, and you would think like, what is the growth channels exist for us to acquire customers and kind of become successful on the market, sort of at scale, maybe? How would you think about sort of partnering with different marketplaces? Would you select one of them? Would you try to partner with multiple? Would you add it as a part of your go-to-market strategy? Would you double down on that? I understand that this all generic questions, but if you were to sort of like make a high-level advice, what are the sort of seeds that you want to plant in head of growth, or head of like partnership, or head of marketing or maybe like a CEO of a tech startup?
I'll answer this, I think, from a perspective of what I've seen go really well with Atlassian. And a lot of this is what Atlassian has done really well, which is to create a marketplace that encourages really well-built products to succeed without having to make huge investments in things like sales and marketing. So for example, you look at the Atlassian marketplace, and it's really driven by product-led growth, or PLG roots, which is this idea that if you launch a really good product on that marketplace with a very low barrier to entry, outside of obviously security and performance. I mean, you have to have table stakes of having a good product, but there's a low barrier to entry to get your products on that marketplace. And then what's been built around this marketplace are things like the community, user groups, right? So your apps are now being talked about. Your technology is being shared amongst these user groups across this community, from blogs to discussions to sponsored, local meetups. All of these things that are happening where people who are Jira administrators across industries, or Confluence administrators across different verticals, they're talking about business problems that they're solving at scale through the use of these different technologies. And that's incredible marketing that's happening organically as a part of the way this ecosystem has been built out. So what's great about that is it enables these founders, it enables these great technology people to ask a very simple question of, what is the marketplace good at, and what am I really good at? If I'm a really good product person and I can leverage the power of this marketplace to do a lot of to get a lot of the visibility through community, the visibility through the ratings systems. I mean, if users like my product and they rate it highly on the marketplace, visibility improves. It's just like a lot of different search engines or different algorithms that you use to say the popular products rise to the top. So the build out of a lot of these marketplaces gives great technology the chance to succeed very much organically through this sort of community and ecosystem dynamic that will then hopefully be picked up by partners, be picked up by these larger scalable opportunities that layer on top of that PLG motion. So what, again, back to your original question, it's this great question for founders to ask of, what am I really good at? And if I'm not interested in making huge investments in things like marketing and sales teams and some of the tools that go with that, these PLG driven marketplaces can be a great way to start to accelerate your growth, because so much of that growth motion is built in to the architecture of the marketplace itself. So that's something I really encourage people to think about, is where can they start to activate some of those growth motions just through participation in that marketplace? And what are those marketplaces doing for them in areas of visibility, discoverability, and hence sort of sales and marketing motions that they may not have the ability or the skill set to invest in themselves immediately. So it's a great way to start thinking about where you can join up with some of these marketplaces to accelerate your growth in ways that you may not have the capital, the people, or the inherent skill set to do yourself.
Atlassian is a great example for building PLG product and building marketplace, but it also worthwhile sort of mentioning that Atlassian started building marketplace. They launched marketplace 10 years into their journey, right? And it's now has like 5,000 apps, if I'm not mistaken. But it has like incredible success. Do you think is this sort of day and age it's almost futile to launch your own marketplace? Is it like a strategy which out of the realm of possibility for companies, unless they have like a huge amount of capital or crazy customer adoption?
Well, I think there's a couple considerations. Certainly the technology is available, right? I mean, the ability to build your own marketplace, the technology is out there. There's some great companies doing some really interesting work around that. I'll go back to that customer question, right? Are you creating a place that inherently adds value to your core customers? Because the other thing now is you start to talk about a number of different marketplaces, you're fighting for customer attention, right? Because one of the things that a marketplace does is it cuts down on the number of different, the number of different vendors that any customer has to visit, right? There's this value of vendor consolidation that can happen when you shop on a marketplace. You get all of this selection in one place. It's sort of this one-stop shop idea that certainly Amazon has benefited from on the consumer side. If you're building your own marketplace, you're essentially creating another destination for your customers to try to drive traffic to. So you really need to be thoughtful about, can you create enough selection? Can you create enough value in that offering to convince customers to add another bookmark to their tabs, to add another destination for their shopping? Because if not, you're actually adding a step to their procurement rather than making their lives easier. So certainly there's a scalable question or a specialization question, I think, that really needs to be asked. So if you're a real specialist in a single area where a marketplace opportunity doesn't exist for that vendor consolidation value, it's a very different proposition than creating a competing marketplace for a solution that already exists. So I would really think about that sort of specialization and competitive dynamic, because creating a new marketplace can be contrary to the idea of creating this one-stop shop vendor consolidation opportunity for your customers.
I agree. It's very difficult undertaking, really, if you think about it. Great. Let's shift gears and talk about Appfire and what do you see in Atlassian ecosystem and other sort of marketplaces. When I've heard about Appfire and that you are the biggest partner of Atlassian and the biggest vendor with the largest traction in Atlassian marketplace, I sort of imagine immediately that you have a lot of businesses coming to you direct, but on the contrary, you mostly working with partners to have this adoption, and you prioritize working with partners versus going direct. Can you tell us a little bit more about your model and like why do you prioritize partners?
Well, we do both. So certainly if a Jira administrator is empowered to add apps through their own security protocols and pay for new technologies through their own system, they can absolutely go into that Atlassian marketplace and buy Appfire products. And we always want to make it very easy to do that. That product-led growth motion is really the core of how the Atlassian marketplace was built. And it's that lower barrier to entry for great technology to become discoverable That's how this marketplace has grown over time. But we also now need to look at the longer term goals here, which is to create long-term subscription-based revenue. And and in many ways, partners are the greatest lever to do that. Because while a single app, for example, may solve a very specific tactical problem with a customer, our solution partners who can sell our entire catalog of apps are solving much bigger business problems for our mutual customers. They're embedded in those customers, and it's not just integrating apps. They're going through things like IT service management transformations. They are moving to agile methodologies across their organizations. And these solution partners are not just embedding technology, but they're helping with things like consultancy, behavioral changes, change management in ways that are really helping our customers improve their businesses moving forward. So we really believe that by empowering and enabling these partners, our technology becomes inherently stickier over time because of this value add that our solution partners are providing. So if you look at especially, for example, larger customers, enterprise type customers, they're simply less likely to go buy single apps from the marketplace. They're looking at procurement from a much bigger perspective. They're looking at entire, company-wide Jira, sometimes multiple instances, sometimes dozens of instances across their company. So they're looking at more sort of enterprise procurement terminology, methodology, processes in order to spend the kind of dollars that they're spending with Atlassian. So in those cases, partners are our best entry into those larger customers. So for us, we look at how much of our revenue is coming from direct business and how much money is coming through our partner business. We don't necessarily care where that, where that slider is on our revenue report, as long as customers have choice and we have the ability to enable either one of those types of customers, the large enterprise that prefers to work with a partner, or in many cases, the smaller or more nimble customers who are buying directly off the marketplace with empowered administrators. We want to empower both of those customers. We want to cater to both of those types of customers. But we've simply found that for those more complex projects, for those bigger business problems to solve, partners are our best way to ensure that we're creating the best customer experience for the long term, which then creates the best opportunity for us to optimize our revenue, not just for this quarter, but for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And that's the value that partners really bring to the table for a technology vendor like Appfire.
Contrary to a popular belief, I guess Atlassian has 40% of revenue coming through partners, I think, sort of 30 to 40%. I've seen different figures. It sounds like you have the same mentality in terms of you want to focus on customers, and whatever makes sense for customers sort of make sense for you. And if customers prefer to be served by partners, that is the way.
That's right. I go back to both in my tenure at Amazon Business and in my tenure at Qualtrics, I led partner marketing organizations at both of those companies. And what was interesting in both of those cases is there was a partner organization within a much larger sales organization, right? And certainly in those cases, the conversation always gets down to attribution, or it's, you've got your direct sales team going after the same customer that your partner is going after, and it's who gets the credit for it, who gets the attribution for it. And, at Appfire, we've made the very specific decision that we don't have a direct sales team. We have people that can certainly help our direct customers be successful who have chosen to transact on the marketplace, but we double down on partners because we've just found that enabling a partner, if I spend the same number of hours enabling a partner versus enabling a direct salesperson, that partner helps me achieve scale much faster, because they've already got their own book of business. So that 1 hour of enablement, that $1 of enablement for us creates much more efficient scale through our partner network. And when our partners know that, they trust us. They know that we are there to invest in them. We're building the programs to support them. We're building the enablement materials to make their sales process move faster. That generates trust over time that just becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy of sticky, long-term revenue over time that's built on a basis of Appfire trusting our partners, our customers trusting our partners, and everybody receiving sort of those value-added multipliers that come from an ecosystem that's all working together to optimize the value that's going to that end customer.
Maybe like a quick question on the partnership model in marketplace, right? If you compare, Atlassian ecosystem with big hyperscalers like AWS, for example, all these big cloud providers started marketplaces with the idea that they will go direct, right? And then at some point they discovered that actually no, customers don't want to go all direct, they want to go through partners. Where do you see sort of partner involvement is going over time in these cloud marketplaces? Do you think it's sort of going up? Is it going down? Is it sort of like a kind of certain level of customers that prefer dealing with partners who will take, up like a larger solution for them? And then sort of adjacent question to that, you as a business, where do you see the biggest benefits from partnering? You mentioned sort of implicitly, you mentioned retention, but I would imagine I would imagine there are different benefits to that as well.
The first part of your question, you used the term solution. And I think solution is a really important word there, and it's one that we tend to talk about a lot. And what I mean is very often direct business is focused on a transactional outcome, right? We want to get a partner to buy an application for X amount of time, and a direct team will say, oh, I hit my goal, let's move on, right? For us, again, when we're working through our partners, the partners are looking at solving not just, one way to say it is, when I talk to my partners, one of the things that they tell us a lot is customers don't come to a partner, one of our solution partners, and say, I need apps. They don't say, I need 10 apps, I need 15 apps. They say, I have a complex business problem that I need you to help me solve, right? And we hope certainly that in the solution of that business problem, there are a number of Appfire apps included, right? That's certainly our goal. That's how we make money. But by positioning ourselves as additive to the provisioning of a solution, we are helping our partners solve these bigger problems that, again, inherently, number one, I've talked about it before. That's the way customers buy. Customers are buying a solution to a problem, not a long list of apps, right? So if we can enable, empower, create messaging, create materials that say, these are the problems we can help our customers solve through our partners, we create a very distinct value chain there, right? And so we've really taken that solution provisioning very seriously because we believe it's the best way for us to empower our partners because, frankly, that's the way they sell. And that's the way they sell because that's the way customers buy in this ecosystem experience that we're talking about with Atlassian. To the second part of your question, from the Appfire perspective, this is just simply more scalable, right? It's more scalable to us. Again, these partners, these established partners, many of them that we're working with, have incredible books of business with some really big customer logos already attached to them because they've been solving these customers' problems for years. So if we can empower those partners at scale, we immediately have access to their books of business. And if they trust us to put our products in front of those customers, that's a level of scale that it can take years to develop by hiring, enabling, and ramping up what is usually a very high-priced direct internal sales team, right? So there are certainly scalable benefits. There are financial benefits because we don't, we pay a commission essentially to the partners at the transactional level, but they're not on our payroll. They're not, they're not getting benefits from us beyond just the commission that they receive on sales. So there's a distinct financial benefit to us as well. While we are achieving that scale, we're also not taking on the additional internal headcount and and sort of the financial burden of hiring large enterprise-driven sales teams, which has been the default of many SaaS companies that have grown quickly but struggled to maintain profitability. And we're seeing a lot of that certainly in the macroeconomic environment right now.
Which is a good segue to our next question, which is, what is your advice in terms of if you're on a SaaS company, right? And I think I have my own products and I want to go to scale it. And I'm thinking, yes, all these marketplaces are growing almost 100% year over year. I mean, not all of them. So Atlassian doesn't seem to be growing to that extent, but still growing very nicely. And they have a lot of customers. I'm starting to think, okay, like how should I go about it? And I think you mentioned discovery, right? If you list on the marketplace like Atlassian or like AWS, you would imagine that you will be discovered. But discovery is a much more complicated thing that people tend to imagine from the get-go. For example, Appfire, it took 20 years to get successful in many marketplaces. So like, what's your advice for the companies which is sort of pondering this marketplace motion today?
Well, you're right about the time horizon. I mean, I think, you hear a lot of people talk about partnerships being a long game. And I think that's definitely true, because you've heard me use the term trust a few times. Trust doesn't happen overnight. You can't set a date and launch a trust program, right? Trust is something that you have to earn and establish over time. And it starts with launching a great product and starting to get some users. I mean, that's where it all has to start. But there is a commitment required to the long term. So the time horizon is really critical. And far too often I've seen partnership programs not get the support in terms of the patience level that is required to see it develop over time. And I think where, there are areas where marketing investment can help accelerate that, right? We're in the internet age. You can buy visibility, right? You can buy exposure. I mean, those are all things that are available to brands. But really, again, at the core of some of these marketplace experiences, when I'm talking about discoverability and visibility, it's very often at the community level and at the user level. So user reviews, for example, that's not something you can buy, but it's something that you can support by, instead of buying, Google ads, sponsor a user group. Go get in front of people who are actually using your product and try to get the conversation going. Atlassian has done an incredible job with their user communities in local areas where Atlassian administrators get together to talk about problems that they're solving. This is some of what I have found to be the best marketing that you can do, because it's relatively inexpensive and you're directly impacting users of your products who are then engaging in the online communities that often drive the review cycles and the visibility that you're truly looking for. So I think it's that balance of, more sort of traditional marketing visibility, but also finding your users where they are, their watering holes, if you will, and making sure that you show up there. And that can be relatively inexpensive. It just takes an effort to identify where those locations are and get engaged with those groups. Those groups love to learn about new things. I think one of the challenges that you hear from a lot of partners and a lot of users in these marketplace environments is there's so much new technology coming all the time. It's hard to keep track of all of it. So when you ask them, how do you stay up to date on the new stuff? They say, it's other users like me. I read the message boards. I participate in the discussions. I go to my local user groups because it's the best way for me to get trusted recommendations rather than having to spend a lot of time doing keyword searches on marketplaces with thousands of products, right? So it's those dynamics of each and every marketplace that are really important to pay attention to, because that's where users and in many ways partners are finding the information about the newest and greatest technology that they are going to use to drive those long-term, sticky, ARR-driven relationships with their customers.
Very detailed. Thanks so much. But do you think partners can help you to get discovered quickly or get sort of much quicker adoption through marketplace? How do you go about sort of looping in partners into this equation to accelerate sort of growth?
It's a great question. I was invited by Atlassian in a couple of weeks at their big conference to give a talk on just that, which is how can marketplace partners get the attention of solution partners. So I'm preparing a presentation on that for the Atlassian conference, and I'm going to go back to the solution piece, because very often I see smaller emerging app vendors, for example, saying, I need to get in front of partners. And first thing I say is right size your expectations. If you've got one small app that does one small thing, it's going, if your expectation is to get in front of every large solution partner, that's probably not a realistic expectation, right? However, what you can start to do is really understand how a partner makes money. I'll go back to that, apps versus solutions conversation. If those partners are trying to solve larger solutions, you need to understand how your technology fits into those solutions. So, very often I encourage enablement materials that use if this then that methodology. So if you give a solution partner a one pager that says, if you hear a customer solving this problem, this is what our app can do to help. If you hear them articulating this business challenge, here's what we can do to help. Frame it in the form of solutions, which is how these partners are selling, rather than going at them with very technical feeds and speeds type marketing, right? This is how fast our app is. This is our latency. This is exactly what. That's not how partners think, because there are thousands of apps on the marketplace, right? Things like case studies, things like telling customer stories can be very helpful. And so these are just, these are a few of the tips and tricks that I give, which are, right size your expectations, but also right size your enablement and your marketing materials in a way that understands how a partner makes money and how a partner sells. If you, for example, are, an application that is involved in, again, like an agile transformation, right? Transformation is a magical word to a solution partner because it implies that they're also going to get billable service hours and not just licensing dollars, right? So if you can be a part of a transformation solution, a partner hears that and says, oh, that tells me that I can bill more hours on this project than just selling software licenses, right? Again, you got to immerse yourself in the partner's business model and understand the difference between selling through a partner to an end user and selling to a partner and explaining how you can drive value to their business. And those are two very different marketing personas, through partner marketing and to partner marketing. And I encourage every company to think about how they're differentiating between those two paths.
You're correct that partners are most excited about their services because they actually can earn, 10x or like maybe like 5x on services versus like revenue. Do you see the same dynamic in sort of your business, your kind of experience? Do you think that they mostly focus on products that will bring them sort of more services?
The simple answer is, but it's also a frustrating answer, it really depends on the partner. So every partner is going to have a slightly different business model. So we have partners that are very license driven, right? We call them, for example, resellers. They're really just looking at, high volume licensing transactions. And that's fine. That's their business choice. And we have ways to support them. And then you have the true sort of solution partners where they are looking at, again, solving those larger business challenges and really getting embedded in with the customer to drive service dollars, but not just to drive up the price of their projects. They know that those transformation projects makes them stickier because they're truly improving businesses rather than just renewing licenses. They're creating new processes. They're driving measurable efficiencies. And the more those measurable efficiencies improve the bottom lines of the customers they're helping, the more that customer is going to come back to them over time. So each partner, is going to have a slightly different business model. And in some cases, it's both. We have some large, very successful partners that have a licensing division, and they also have a, value-added services and solutions division across a number of different practice areas. So know your partners, know where their money comes from. Again, I talk about that a lot, which is, Don't assume you understand your partner's business model and how they make money, because each partner is going to have a slightly different model. They may focus on different verticals. They may focus on different solution areas across Atlassian, like Agile at scale or cloud migrations, right? These may be different areas of focus for them. And each of those areas of focus brings a different dynamic to the way they want to be enabled and empowered by their technology partners.
One last question is, how do you differentiate, right, in this like very populated marketplaces like Atlassian or like Amazon? How do you have any sort of top of mind sort of advice? How do you advise companies to stand out?
Well, I think there's three things I'll talk about. First would be, we talked about discoverability. I mean, there's the algorithm of the marketplace, right? And like with Amazon, it was make sure every customer has a really good experience, because if your delivery is late, it hurts your discoverability. If you have a customer problem, you move down in the search results, right? I mean, understand those algorithms for discoverability and treat customers accordingly, because that's the way organically over time you can continue to improve your discoverability. Marketing can be an accelerator, right? Marketing enablement can be an accelerator, whether you're, again, sponsoring local user groups to driving keyword-based traffic from search engines. There's different ways to do that, but marketing is certainly a programmatic accelerator of discoverability and visibility if you do it in thoughtful ways. I think the third thing I would say is more qualitative, okay? We've said the word ecosystem a couple times, right? And I've talked a little bit about Appfire's history. The good news and the bad news about the ecosystems for companies is that everyone talks to each other. There is a water, sort of the traditional water cooler conversation factor around the ecosystem. So people know each other. Information gets shared. It's hard to keep certain information off the record, if you will, because it is a tight-knit ecosystem. And what I'm saying is the way you treat people, your reputation matters. Be delightful to do business with. Make sure that the qualitative way that you treat people, the integrity with which you operate your business, those are high standards that will be shared across the ecosystem, good or bad. It's your opportunity to decide how people talk about you behind your back. And we think about that all the time, because people will talk about you behind your back, whether you're a big player or a small player, people will talk about you. You want them talking about you, and it's the way you operate over time. It's the way you earn trust. It's the way you treat your vendors, the way you treat the platform, the way you treat your partners and customers. That's the narrative that's going to be told about you behind your back over time. And the way you interact with your ecosystem every day is going to determine the positivity or negativity of that chatter. And I think about that every day. By the way we treat people, the way we operate with integrity, that's where the qualitative joins the quantitative to drive long-term business results, because we want to be trusted. That's where the long-term play comes in, is trust.
Thank you so much, Colin. That's been a fantastic conversation. I feel like we need to invite you back after your talk in Atlassian. I think you have a lot of insights to share, and thank you so much for sharing your rich experience. And I'll look forward to having another one.
Likewise, and thank you for the work that you're doing to just elevate the conversation around partnerships. It's great for those of us that operate in this space, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Thanks so much. Last note: what is the best way for people to reach out to you? If sort of any messages that you would like to leave them with?
If you want to learn more about Appfire, certainly it's appfire.com. We're easy to find. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so Colin Puckett, you'll be able to see my name in the byline, I'm sure, of this recording. I'm happy to connect with other professionals or anybody that wants to learn more about Appfire, or I do a lot of mentoring and career development work, and I'm just happy to connect with people that are looking for ways to advance their own careers in the space of partnerships and marketplaces.
Amazing. Thank you so much.